The United States government is about to start QE, quantitative easing, printing money like it's going out of style. The treasuries that are going to be purchased are eventually going to be on blockchain. So you start to wonder which blockchain company is the US government going to partner with to have this entire new industry flourish in the digital age. I believe that XRP and Ripple could be a solution for the US government. I want to play this clip, but I also want to go through what the steps would need to be taken for the US to start using the XRP ledger for treasuries, because that is the future. Let's just jump into this. I have a ton of other Ripple and XRP information. We're going to talk about tokenization. The asset class is about to explode. So many things happening behind the scenes, guys. I'm going to catch you all up in this video. Let's just jump right in. X Finance Bull has a post here. He says XRP Holders Pal has already said that they'll be adding reserves to the Fed's balance sheet. Remember when Trump mentioned the US had a crypto stockpile and XRP was a part of it? Ripple is not just another startup. It's a US-born solution to a quadrillion-dollar global payments problem. And it's led by people who've met with presidents and policy architects like Brad Garlinghouse and Stuart Alderade. XRP already has legal clarity, enterprise utility, and real adoption. And now the Fed is preparing for the next monetary phase, one where digital reserves aren't optional. What if XRP is not just surviving regulation, but positioned for integration? Let me play this. You're right. Place will be on December 1st is that the size of the balance sheet is frozen, and as mortgage-backed securities mature, we'll reinvest those in treasury bills, which will foster both a more treasury balance sheet and also a shorter duration. So that's what, in the meantime, if you freeze the size of the balance sheet, the non-reserve liabilities, currency, for example, they're going to continue to grow organically. And because the size of the balance sheet is frozen, you have further shrinkage in reserves, and reserves is the thing that we're managing that has to be ample. So that will happen for a time, but not a tremendously long time. We don't know exactly how long, but at a certain point, you'll want to start reserves to start gradually growing to keep up with, the size of the banking system and the size of the economy. So we'll be adding reserves at a certain point. And that's the last point. And even then, we didn't make decisions about this today, but we did talk today about the composition of the balance sheet. And there's a desire that the balance sheet be right now where it's got a lot more duration than the outstanding universe of treasury securities. And we want to move to a place where we're closer to that duration. That'll take some time. We haven't made a decision about the ultimate endpoint, but we all agree that we want to move more in the direction of a balance sheet that more closely reflects the outstanding treasuries. And that means a shorter duration balance sheet. Now, this is something that's going to take a long time and move very, very gradually. I don't think you'll notice it in market conditions, but that's the direction. So we're talking about short-term treasuries. Normally, treasuries are a year, 3 years, 10 years, 30 years. They're going to do like 90 days and a much shorter term. And so that's what he's kind of signaling. Now, if you're going to do a new system like that, you probably are going to need instant settlement, right? Being able to have a whole market where these treasuries can trade openly 24/7, 365. And so let's just talk a little bit about this current QE and blockchain trends. Palettes confirm that the Fed's balance sheet runoff is ending and the monetary policy is pivoting back towards expansion and liquidity with traditional means purchasing treasuries and injecting funds into the US financial system. So could they start injecting funds into XRP into other blockchain assets? Real-world pilots have already shown US treasuries and government securities it can be tokenized and settled on blockchain infrastructure. Notably, over the summer of 2025, a consortium of financial institutions successfully executed real-time on-chain financing. Tokenized US treasuries against USDC with instant atomic settlement, even outside traditional market hours. US government is actively exploring and piloting blockchain and financial management asset transfers and audit processes, with multiple agencies studying implementation challenges and cybersecurity considerations. The White House's 2025 digital asset policy explicitly prioritizes building the world's leading blockchain-powered capital markets infrastructure, which means treasuries are coming to blockchain. Yes, they're going to be probably on multiple networks. I can't imagine you just use one. And so you start to imagine USDC is going to be used here. I'd imagine all USD is going to be used here, and maybe some other infrastructure on Solana. I don't know too much about that, but I do know that XRP ledger is being looked at. I know that USDC is being looked at, and you start to wonder how big can this get and how quickly can they transition? All right, so why XRP and what could it enable? Because that's what I really wanted to know. The XRP ledger is already recognized as a robust system for tokenized on a broad array of real-world assets, including debt instruments, bonds, and securities. In 2025, tokenized real-world asset transactions on the XRP ledger grew 2,200%. Asia and parts of Europe are piloting government bonds directly on ledgers. Right, this is already happening, already being done in Europe. So we know the whole system works. The US can say, oh snap, they've been doing this in Europe for a year already. Great, we're looking to do the same thing, right? Garlinghouse has been at the White House 4 times this year. Right, Garlinghouse just sat down with Patrick Witt, who's in charge of crypto policy in the White House. You start trying to make some connections here, right? All right, and it says, and Ripple has direct partnerships with central banks and CBDC pilots. Remember, there's over like 24 CBDC pilots, and we only have real information on about 6 of them, maybe 7. And so there are a lot of CBDC pilots that there's NDAs, and we don't know who Ripple is working with. So you start to wonder, is it in the EU? Is it France? The Bank of England? You know, all of these different ones. XRP Ledger offers built-in issuance tools, account set, trust line, fast settlement for low transaction costs, and regulatory alignment, making it a candidate to host government securities either directly or through interoperability of other blockchains. What a blockchain-based QE market could look like on the XRP ledger. The US Treasury or Fed could issue tokenized treasury securities directly on the XRP ledger or similar blockchains, creating digital assets that represent T-bills, notes, and bonds. Institutions, dealers, and even the Fed could interact with these tokenized assets using smart contracts that enforce settlement, compliance, margin, and collateralization rules in real time. On-chain purchase and settlement would mean instant 24/7 access, global time zones, weekend trading, and total transparency in the allocation and the movement of liquidity. Remember, the regulators will be a node on the network. They can see all of the transactions. This is going to reduce fraud and take risk out of the system. Exactly what they want to do. The Fed's QE operations could, in theory, be executed on-chain by tokenizing treasuries directly in a digital market where all flows and ownership are transparent and programmable, dramatically reducing the settlement. We listened to Larry Fink, right? All the future stock and bond market will be through blockchain. And you start to look around the United States, you start to wonder what systems could actually do this. There's not very many. Stellar probably couldn't handle this. They don't have the institutional connections that Ripple does. Circle might be able to handle some of this, but realistically, there's only one real blockchain infrastructure company with the right partners globally and here in the United States that I think could handle this, right? And you know who that company is? It's Ripple. And you know, XRP and RLUSD would be the 2 best assets to do all this, right? Because if you have people investing in US treasuries in other countries and they want to be paid out in their own currencies, right?